Do you ever read the stories of the burning bush or the parting of the Red Sea and think that is great for them? But what about me now in modern days? Perhaps you might be asking, how does God talk to us today? Because you're tired of feeling like the heavens are a closed book and you're looking for what modern technology He uses to reach His daughters. Take heart. By the end of today's episode, you will understand the primary channels God uses to bypass the noise of the world, from the peace that guards your heart to the light bulb moments you might have while you're in conversation with a friend. We're going to help you solve the pain of spiritual silence by sharing a 30-day practice that will help you see God's fingerprints in the everyday miracles that perhaps you've been missing. We're moving from biblical theology to real-time connection. Stay tuned. Ordinary women, extraordinary faith. When God calls, we say yes. The Arise Women of God podcast. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Arise Women of God podcast. I'm your host, Tamara K. Anderson, and joining me today is the amazing Kari Anjewierden, a member of our Women Warriors of Light Advisory Board. We are so happy to have her here with us today as we begin exploring the tools of modern revelation. First, we're going to discuss the Philippians Filter. Say that 10 times fast. And why feelings of peace are actually a sophisticated form of divine communication. Second, we'll expose the Doubt Counterattack. How to tell if a thought is from God or if the adversary is just trying to jam your signal. Third, we're going to discuss repetition and light bulbs, how God uses other people and recurring messages to get your attention. And finally, Kari is going to share her miracle hunt, a month-long experiment that proved God's fingerprints are on every single day. But first, let's kick it off by talking about a powerful principle taught in Philippians. I love the verse in Philippians chapter 4, verse 7, where God says, and the peace of God, because I think you can describe those feelings as a peace, right? Mm-hmm. Which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. And I love that it mentions the two places that we kind of feel those answers from God. It's usually in our heart and in our mind. And I love that it mentions peace, heart, and mind. Because those are the ways that I often feel answers, or is a peaceful feeling in my mind or heart.
I think it depends on us somewhat, because I think everybody hears God differently. I'm a very visual person, so for me it might be different than someone who is a very logical minded person. But for me, feelings, I would say, are probably the top way that I feel Him speaking to me. And sometimes it's a quiet voice inside my head, that just an idea that sparks. Or sometimes I have actually heard audible voice before, but those are very few and far between for me.
It just feels right. That peace is a signature of the Spirit. But as soon as the light comes in, the darkness often tries to follow. Kari and I have both noticed that if you start doubting a good thought immediately, that's actually a sign that you are onto something divine. Just like there's light and darkness, once you receive a little bit of inspiration, pay attention to that and the feeling when it comes. Write it down when it comes. I've had this thought to do X, because immediately, and this is almost verification that what you got is from God. If you start doubting, that's the darkness coming in and the adversary saying, oh, don't do that good thing. You shouldn't call that person. You shouldn't text them. That's dumb. That's awkward, And so it's interesting that the fact that sometimes doubt comes in after you've received this peaceful feeling is a verification that it's probably coming from God. If it's something good. If the enemy is trying to stop it, it is because it is a good thing. But God doesn't just speak inside our heads. He uses the world around us. Kari has seen a pattern in that God uses repeating messages to make His intent loud and clear.
Repetition. sometimes I am hearing the same message from different sources. Maybe I'm reading it in the scriptures. Maybe a friend then speaks it to me, and then maybe I'm watching some random, maybe it's a podcast or I don't know what, and the same message is coming to me. And I've noticed, okay, God is trying to tell me something. When those things are repeating, it's something to pay attention to.
That is so true. I remember when God was first starting me on this journey to share my light, the first impression was to write a book. And it was like every time I opened the scriptures, there it was, bam, something about writing or recording or something like that would pop out of the page. It was like God was using this mental, like, woo, I don't know how he does it, but you're like, whoa, that word right is there again. Oh my gosh, how did that just happen? But it does, it shows up and you're like, wow. Yeah, I'm getting the message, Lord. You want me to write. And I'm totally intimidated by that fact. And so I'm kind of dragging my feet a little bit on this. Sometimes I think God answers us or talks to us through other people too. I walk with friends, and so I'll be on a walk and I'll be sharing a struggle that I'm having in my life. And one of my cute friends will say something, and it's like this light bulb just kind of goes bing. You know how they do in the cartoons where the light bulb just poof, it appears above their head, and you're like, oh, that's it. And I think that's God saying, hey, that's the answer, And you're like, oh, and so sometimes it can come through the words of others. He is persistent, but sometimes I think we miss the signal because we're looking for giant miracles like the parting of the Red Sea, when God is leaving little fingerprints instead. Kari is now going to share a specific practice she started that changed how she sees God in her daily life.
And then another way that God has showed me that he speaks to me is through everyday little miracles. Just if I'm watching and I can see his little fingerprints on everything. And I'm like, okay, I may not be able to hear his voice or feel like I'm hearing his voice, but if I can see those every day, I know he's there. And that's enough for me.
And Kari, I know this is something that you've grown into that you ask. Didn't you start by asking God to show you?
Mm-hmm. So I started with a gratitude journal and was writing down my gratitude and noticed how grateful that made me, or how much more that turned my heart to God and wanting to hear his voice. It also made it easier to hear his voice. And one day, as I was praying, and I'm praying my gratitude, and I'm like, what more can I do? Like, I really want to improve my relationship with you. What more can I do? And pretty much heard and then read something, add one miracle every day. Okay. And I'm thinking grand miracles, right? I'm thinking part the Red Sea sort of stuff. And what I discovered was, no, it's in those tiny moments where you feel all alone and the impossible happens. Things that you would think, oh, that could never happen. And then it does. It sounds grand, but it's common. We're seeing them all the time and we just don't recognize it. And it took some time for me to get where I could really see them. In fact, I would say it was probably a good solid month before I was actually going, oh, that is a miracle. That is a miracle. Praying that whole time, like, show me, show me. And I know he was showing me during that time. I just didn't know how to see it. Now I see them everywhere. I see them all the time. And I've learned to pray for those experiences. Okay, I'm in this difficult space. Where are you? Show me. And he always does. And it's amazing how much clearer his voice has become because I look for those little fingerprints of his every day.
So, my friend, God is still speaking today. He's using peace. He's using your friends, and He's leaving miracles in the cracks of your busy life. You just have to be willing to look for the fingerprints. If you're ready to start your own miracle hunt, we have the tools to help you tune in your frequency. You can download our Roadmap to Revelation PDF, 6 steps to helping you hear God in your daily life for free in the link below. This workbook includes our first morning priority to help you set your frequency toward the divine before the world starts buzzing. We're also including an additional free resource with our Receiving Light and Revelation audio meditation download to help you find that pocket of stillness that Kari mentioned. So my friends, go find one fingerprint of God in your life today. Ask Him to show it to you. You might be surprised. And until next time, may you arise. Do it God's way, God strong.